Hello, I'm Beth Joey and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. This is a channel where I paint my face, turn my camera on and talk about some books. I feel like I start every video in this readathon this way, but basically, as you'll see from down below, I am participating in the Magical Readathon Spring Equinox way after it has already happened, because in my mind I got massive FOMO when the autumn equinox happened and I couldn't participate, or at least in my mind I couldn't participate, because I hadn't done all the work getting up to that point. I hadn't built the character, I hadn't gone on the novice path, nothing like that, and I wanted to do all of that. Quite naively, I decided that I would do a massive Magical Readathon catch-up so that by the time the next spring equinox comes around in April, I think it is, I would actually be able to participate with my character, with all the books that I'd previously read. The reason why I say naively is because I didn't realize just how many books this meant that I had to read, and that definitely hit me when I was doing the novice path, and I had like 8 books on that list and it took me like months to read them. But I'm finally glad to say that I have finished the spring equinox. I've read the 3 books that I assigned myself for that in my TBR, and I want to tell you all about them. So you might have seen from my TBR video, I decided I wanted to be an illusionist rogue, and for that I had to complete 3 courses, one of which was psionics and divination, and for that I had to read a book set in the future. And so I picked up Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman because I was already planning to read this because I was loving this series. This is the 2nd book in the Scythe series by Neil Shusterman. As for what this series is about, it is set in a world where humanity has defeated death, which means they need to find a system to maintain the population, keep an eye on number of people, and so the world doesn't go to shit. And the way they choose to do this is by creating the Scythedom, which is a group of people put together who are allowed to completely randomly and objectively glean or kill certain members of the population. Then we follow Citra and Rowan, who are recruited by Scythe Faraday, only to find out later on down the line that each Scythe is only supposed to recruit 1 apprentice, which means these 2 are going to have to compete throughout their apprenticeship, and at the end, one of them will have to glean the other. Thunderhead obviously follows on from that, and it expands so much more about the world and all the different factions at play, all the different groups and rebellions at play, like the Tolls, the Unsavories, the Academics, everything like that, and it goes into so much more detail about the conflicts at play in the world, rather than just sort of following Citra and Rowan through their apprenticeship as the first book did. I gave this book 4.5 stars. If you can't already tell, I really enjoyed this book. I loved how much it expanded through the world. I loved how we got to know all the different rebel movements and how the world just grew so much. I thought Citra and Rowan as characters grew a lot as well. Citra had almost like this identity crisis through the book, where when she was around people, she knew exactly who she was. She presented herself as Scythe Anastasia. She was so confident, but in her own mind, she didn't know how to refer to herself. And then Rowan, everything he went through in the previous book with having a different mentor and everything that did to him, he's definitely on a vigilante mission in this story, and it's really fascinating to see how he's so proud of that and so proud that he's doing the right thing, but also ashamed of it in that he refuses to let his family know about any of this. And then obviously the Thunderhead, witnessing everything from the Thunderhead's perspective as he reflects on everything that's going on in the world. It's a really good moment to just have a bit of a review of everything that's happened and really highlight everything that's really important, because you know a character is important if the Thunderhead singles them out. And then I mean dystopian fiction, I just love it because it has this quality where it is so similar to your own world that you begin to question whether or not this could actually happen to us, because the setting is so familiar, but then it's so different that you don't really get jarred out of the story or anything when the more fantastical things start to happen, like the idea of people living forever. So it's just this really creepy genre or setting, because yeah, it's just so close, and you constantly read the book thinking, oh my god, could this happen to us? And the last thing I want to say about this book is the writing, which I really loved. It was so jarring and eerie and creepy, and then I loved how it was split up every chapter with a reflection from the Thunderhead that made the whole thing just a bit of a faster read, and it really contextualized the plot a lot better than I think if the Thunderhead wasn't included, and it made the Thunderhead feel like a character in themselves rather than just being sort of this overhead big brother figure. It made it really creepy, because always when I read like an AI superpower, I'm like, oh my god, they're totally going to take over the world and they're going to make everything bad, which adds this extra level of like tension and complexity, and it was just really good. So 4.5 stars, love this book. The next book that I read was for my shapeshifting course, where I have to read a book with claws on the cover, and so I picked up Belladonna by Adeline Grace, because if you can tell, there's like little birds on the cover, and birds have claws or talons, or It made sense in my mind, so don't question it. As for what Belladonna is about, it follows a girl by the name of Signa who believes she's haunted by death, I guess, because everywhere she goes since the death of her mother when she was just a baby, every guardian she's assigned to, they quickly pass away after she arrives there, whereas she herself is completely bulletproof, like she can't die. Anything that happens to her, she will heal. So naturally, she's not a huge fan of death. She believes he's cursed her until she goes to Thorn Grove and she lives with the Hawthorne family, which totally made me think of the Inheritance games. And she grows an attachment to them like she's never had before, and she is set on not letting anything that happened to them that has happened in her previous homes. She is like on death's tail, like do not hurt these people, especially because there's a rather suspicious death that's happened in this family of the matriarch, the mother of the family, and now the daughter is beginning to present all the same symptoms. Signa is determined to find out what's actually going on, if it's a disease or if someone is actually poisoning this family. And it is a really creepy, eerie, gothic sort of fantasy, romance, murder mystery thing, and I gave it 4 stars. I think the reason why this book got 4 stars is not because it's anything standout or incredible, it's more just because I had a really fun, easy time reading this. I thought the characters were fun and easy to follow. I don't 100% understand the whole eerie gothic thing that everybody attaches to this book because I didn't feel that, but I definitely felt the tension between each of the characters as they were building relationships with each other and just trying to solve this murder mystery and figure out which one of them within this house they couldn't trust. I thought the secondary characters, especially Blythe, had a lot of depth to them that I really appreciated, and Blythe herself was just so witty, so snarky, so stubborn, and I loved reading every scene that she had with Signa. The writing was simple and readable, but I think the real hero of this story is how it mixed murder mystery, fantasy, and romance all together, and it felt like it was so seamless. It felt like it made sense the way each of the characters were building relationships while also trying to figure out which one of them was the murderer. I found the final reveal super unexpected, not because it didn't make sense how we got to that point, but when it was all explained, it did make sense. I just did not see it coming. The pace was pretty fast. The enemies to lovers on Signa's side was definitely amazing. The tension and the angst was perfect. And then Death was a bit of a like swoony hero, which I really love when they're just totally devoted to the heroine, but the heroine's like, no, I hate you. Like that is my favorite trope, whatever that's called. I love it. And I just could not stop reading this book. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, it got 4 stars, and that is the second book out of 3. And lastly, I had my Art of Illusion class where I had to read a book with a trope that I liked, and so I picked up Book Lovers by Emily Henry, which is definitely a bit of a enemies to lovers, rivals to lovers situation that I really love, as well as like a small town romance. It's just everything I want in a romance. As for what this book is about, it follows Nora, who's a cutthroat literary agent who has bumped into a editor named Charlie sort of prior to the events of this, or prior to the main events of this book, and she's tried to sell him a story only for him to completely shut her down, which naturally puts them in a bit of a enemies situation, at least on Nora's side. I think about 2 years later, Nora and her sister Libby are starting to feel the distance between them, and so they're trying to really rekindle that sisterly bond that they have, and so they decide to go on a holiday to Sunshine Falls for the perfect small town. They're going to create a sort of small town romance vibes on this holiday, and Nora is determined to meet like a sexy lumberjack or a doctor or something really small town and amazing, except she keeps bumping into Charlie. But obviously as they keep bumping into each other, the relationship forms and they begin to share the various traumas and everything they've gone through in their life. A really beautiful relationship forms. And I mean, this book for me was kind of more contemporary than it was romance. It was definitely very hard hitting, and so I gave the book 4.5 stars. The characters in this story, like I said, they absolutely broke me. I really appreciated how Emily Henry took me through each of their like sort of emotional traumas and everything that they've been going through step by step, and rather than having like the romance solves it all, they definitely worked through everything together, which I really liked, and the feelings of inadequacy that they had were definitely similar to each other, so they were able to sort of discuss and make each other feel better while also knowing that the healing sort of had to come from within. I didn't 100% love Libby's character and all the lying and secret keeping and everything, but on the flip side, I do understand, because like the level of involvement that Nora had in Libby's life previously was definitely not healthy, and Libby was just trying to do something for herself, and that's not something that should be like, you know, that's not something that needs to be shared with your sister all the time. I felt so tense every single moment in this book as every hurdle came up in their relationship, as every moment of mutual pining happened, and especially that final hurdle that happened between the two of them. It just felt so insurmountable because it wasn't, you know, something that either of them did wrong. It was like a situation sort of hurdle, and I'm like, oh my god, how are they ever going to fix this? And it kept the book so tense. My only complaint is that I would have liked a little bit more relationship time between Nora and Charlie. They definitely had a lot of mutual pining, a lot of back and forth, but not a ton of time in their actual relationship. So when the ending kind of happens, and I mean, it's a romance, you know, they get together in the end, you want to feel like that getting together has come from a place of like a solid relationship rather than just like their situation being resolved. And I think if we had more time with them as a couple, then that would have felt like it was more natural, but instead it kind of felt like this relationship was built out of shared trauma and their situation being resolved, and that doesn't exactly work in my mind. So I would have liked a bit more time with them as a couple. But other than that, I really enjoyed the story. It definitely broke me. It hit me so hard, but it was so, so good. So these are the 3 books that I read for my spring equinox, which means I'm finally up to the autumn equinox. I have to read 5 books for that. I've created my TBR, but you're gonna have to wait until my next video to see that, but it's definitely gonna be a good one. I've put quite a few books on there that I've been really, really looking forward to reading for quite a long time, and this was just the excuse that I needed because the prompts fit the books. But yeah, as always, let me know if you've read any of these books, if you've enjoyed them, not enjoyed them, if you think there's anything about them that I've missed, or just what you're reading at the moment. I always love to hear about the books that you're reading and get sort of recommendations from you guys. Some of my favorite books have actually been things that you guys have told me about, so do come and chat to me in the comments down below. I love talking to you guys, and I do my best to reply to every single comment. I really, really hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please do let me know by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell all down below. It is a super, super easy way to help my channel grow, and I will see you lovely people in my next video. Bye!